Welcome to Smart Branding, a podcast dedicated to branding, naming, and domain names. I'm Tatiana Bonneau, and with my guests, we try to help you create and grow strong, memorable, and meaningful brands online. I believe time is one of our most precious assets, and so I want to thank you in advance if you decide to spend the next 30 minutes with us. I promise to do my best to make those worth it. Let's go!
All right. So yeah, let's start. Tell me a bit about yourself. How did you start Tykr?
Sure. So Tykr is it real quick here. I'll give you a description of what it is, and I'll give you a little background on how it came to be. So Tykr is a stock screener and educational platform all in one. So if you're somebody who wants to get started in the stock market, like a lot of people are right now, the question is, where do you start? So Tykr is that perfect starting point. It breaks things down in really simple terms. You know, we don't use $20 words in confusing language, which can be found in finance. We make it super easy from that regard. And then the screener, it analyzes stocks for you. So it finds good stocks, that it steers you away from the bad stocks. Like you probably remember GameStop was all the rage last year, and AMC, and those stocks have pretty bad financials, so very risky. But still, people were going to them because it was the shiny object, you could say. But anyway, my background is a little over 15 years in software engineering, primarily project management. Had a company from 2006 to 2010. It was an agency, so we built websites and software. And when social media started to become a thing, we did a little bit of that. And we went through a merger in 2010. It wasn't like a big liquidity event, like, hey, here's a bunch of cash you can write off into the sunset and retire. It was not that. It was all debts and liabilities were removed from the company and me. So it was like a fresh start, essentially. So that allowed me to gain a lot of exposure to a wide variety of businesses. And the business model I really liked the most was SaaS, software as a service. At the time, though, 2010, I didn't have any SaaS ideas. So the last 10 years, essentially, I've been working for large corporations, including GE and Kohler. And that's been really good experience to learn how these businesses operate, but at the same time, still kind of like trying to think of an idea, like a SaaS idea or something I could execute on. Well, in 2015, I started getting into the stock market a little bit. Prior to that, I was doing some angel investing, kind of helping small tech startups. Some was money and some was just expertise, but I never had any of those big wins. But anyway, coming back to 2015, I'm like, I need to start building my wealth if I want to retire someday, and I can't keep taking these risks. So I got to start doing it the Warren Buffett way. So I read a bunch of books, went down the YouTube rabbit hole, and tried to take in as much knowledge as I could to learn how are they doing this, because these guys like Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger, the two big names that come to mind, they've been able to consistently beat the market. And the question is, how? And I know they're not gambling men. They're not going to the casino, right? They're not using emotions, which means they're using some sort of logic. In my background in software engineering, I'm like, okay, so they're using logic. There's some sort of math they're using. So that's why I went down that YouTube rabbit hole and read all the books, put something together in Excel. And I wanted a way to remove my emotions from the equation. Like, I don't want to look at a stock and think like, well, maybe it's going to do well, or maybe it's not. And what if this happens? What if I want to definitively know, like, this is a good investment or bad, so I can enjoy things I like to do in life aside from sitting at a computer. And I created this Excel sheet, and I ended up generating really good returns over 4 years. And it wasn't anything glamorous, but I was making returns that were between 15 and 50%. I was very pleased with that. And that came to 2019, started sharing this with some people like retail investors and some institutions. And they were all like, hey, when are you going to turn this into a software? So that was finally 10 years later, I've got my SaaS idea. So
hey.
Exactly. It took about a year to build. We went live in 2020, and now we've been live about 18 months. We just crossed 4,000 customers globally.
Cool. So you launched basically in the pandemic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I guess in your case, it's probably not such a terrible time, because people were more had more time to spend, and I guess we all became a bit more concerned about our finances and planning.
You are 100% right. That actually worked out in the favors. They say timing is a big factor in business. And I didn't really think about that, but there are a ton of people, yes, with all this available time, and they want to be thinking about their finances. And at the same time, like Robinhood and TD Ameritrade and other brokers around the globe, they're becoming free, which means you can join them and you can buy and sell shares of any stock, and you're not going to see a large transaction. It'll say free, but there's always like a micro fee behind the scenes, but you don't have to worry about that. So it's like the barrier to entry is becoming super low. And we hit the market at the right time, kind of coming in between and teaching people like, yes, you should totally invest on your own, but be careful, right? You want to buy the right stocks and avoid the bad ones. So again, our timing fortunately was very good thanks to COVID.
Yeah. How did you come up with the name, brand name?
Yeah, that was a process. I had a few longer names in the past that weren't very glamorous. And I wanted a name that was 2 syllables. You know, you think about like Netflix, Facebook, Google, right? Something that had a tech that was quick. It was short, sweet, but also something that represented the stock market. Of course, Tykr, as it's normally spelled, Tykr.com, is not even available. I don't think there's even a URL available. Somebody might be just sitting on the domain ready to sell for like $1 million. But yeah, I'd found Tykr, Tykr, was available as a .pro on GoDaddy. And eventually we did buy the .com when we had enough revenue, and that it came at a price, but it was worth it. So we could become a .com.
Sure. Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because I saw on your Twitter profile, you still have the .pro. So I was like, oh, okay. So they had the pro and they got the com after.
Good call out. I'm not as active on Twitter as I should be. I will change that. Yeah, because
it's there.
in the last 6 months, I think we did make that change. Finally got the .com. So I gotta do a little cleaning up on my social media. Yes.
No, I like those things. There's like a lot of startups launch on some sort of a compromise of the domain, like you mentioned, and then once you've proved the idea, you know it's going to work. You're like, okay, I have to now invest into the brand and secure the .com. So that when people forget to change their Twitter bio like you do, it kind of gives me that backstory of also it was that.
Yes, indeed.
What was the feedback you got after changing or after getting the .com?
There wasn't a whole lot actually from our customers. It's kind of at the end of the day, the value is in the tool itself. But from our perspective, there are 2 main things we're thinking about long term. And this is something good to think about with the listeners, is .coms, depending on the email client you use. Like I know there's still people out there that use Hotmail or Yahoo Mail. Some of these can be really strict. And if you don't have a .com, it's like, let's say it's a .pro or something aside from a .net or .org, which can be popular too, but something that's a little more exotic, it can fall into spam a little easier. So you got to have a more common TLD on the end there. So the .com helps with that. I know with technology, it is kind of mitigating that risk, but the .com can definitely, a higher assurance, more emails will land in the inbox. The other factor was someday, depending on how this goes, is we would like to sell the company, and having that .com does increase the enterprise value. The buyer probably wants to see that because they'll ask that question if we don't have it, like, hey, have you thought about the .com? So I know some people who buy and sell businesses probably would push back on that and be like, oh, we don't care. But I know some people have mentioned that. So
yeah, it is a stronger brand, and you're also sort of securing it for the future. Because I mean, it's one thing if you just don't own the .com, that's one thing. But if like somebody else owns it, what happens then?
Exactly. Can they go after you in some way, shape, or form, or try to take your brand away? You know, there's what do you call patent trolls out there? You know, so stuff like that. So it's like, you know what? Let's bite the bullet, buy the domain, and we don't have to worry about it down the road. Because if you get too big and then you try to buy a domain, the seller, if they're wise, they're like, okay, now it's going to come at a serious premium, and you don't want to pay several hundred grand for a stock or a URL.
All right. And who can benefit from your services? Like, is there any type of client and geographical location?
Yeah, so geography, there's no limit. We are global. We've got about, as of today, we've got 29,000 stocks around the globe. Some of the major markets, of course, include the US and Canada, but we do have a lot of customers and a lot of stocks from Europe. You're located in France. We've got a lot of stocks from France added to Tykr. And then South Asia is growing extremely fast. So India, Indonesia, Singapore, Philippines. And then you look at Australia and New Zealand. We don't have stocks yet, but Australia we've got a lot. So we do have a really serious global footprint. So there's no limit to where you're located. You will definitely find something great to invest in, no matter where you're at. We got a lot of customers from Africa, and we're starting to add more stocks from that part of the world too. As far as the type of person, we serve the retail investor, which is the everyday person like you or I that wants to invest on their own. And you can certainly still go forward with a financial planner, but it's becoming easier and easier to do this on your own. You don't have to pay fees. You can buy and sell stocks, which I mentioned are low cost or free. And you can do this and you can do very well. And it's not too difficult. And that's where Tykr comes in. And with our audience, about 80% of the people that join are brand new. Like they'll hear something on a podcast or see something on YouTube or hear something from a friend. And, it'll be in conversations like you go to a restaurant or bar and they'll be like, oh, have you thought about this stock? Oh, I'm buying stocks over here. And they're like, oh, I can totally do this on my own. So we're again, this is that timing thing is people are finding us and realizing, okay, I got to stay away from these stocks and use these. So the beginner is great. We do have a few advanced investors. They'll join and use our tool. They really like it because it does provide the technical detail they're looking for with the stocks and the data behind it. But it's usually the primary audience is the new person.
Yeah, that was going to be my question. If somebody's like completely new to it, can they use it? And you've just answered that, so thank you.
Yeah.
Is it just like that easy to use, and so people naturally get along with it, or do you offer some additional materials on like some education?
Right now, this will give you an idea of our roadmap. So right now, when you join, we have 21 different tips that teach you like things like when to buy, when to sell, how to reduce risk. All those things are on our site now. Tykr.com is a front-facing site where you can read a bunch of educational information at your own leisure, but you're also sent a new tip every day over 21 days. And that onboarding, a lot of people do like. What we're doing in the future is we're going to be launching a new version of Tykr, hopefully in April, if not May. And it's going to be greatly inspired by Duolingo. And Duolingo is best in class with micro learning. Like if you want to learn a new language, they gamify it and make it super fun and super easy.
I'm using it.
You are nice. I'm actually touching up my Spanish right now. I really lost track of that since high school, but they're great. They do a great job. And it's like, we need to do the same thing with investing, is break it down, make it really fun, really easy. So the materials we have, we're kind of breaking that down and going to make modules with like progress bars and stuff like that. So, and we're going to make that free. That part of the tool will be free education. You get in, use it. But of course, if you want to use the stock data and whatnot, that's where the subscription comes into play. And we keep it pretty low cost too. So.
Nice. And what are some do's and don'ts you could share? Well, you have quite a vast experience even before Tykr with entrepreneurs, like somebody who's aspiring to start a business based on your experience.
Oh, sure. Do's and don'ts with starting a business as opposed to do's and don'ts with investing in the stock market. Because I could talk
you can
about
do both actually. That's
I'll start with the stock since that's top of mind, and then we'll transition to the business. Ahead. So with the stock market, the timing of your question is perfect because right now there's a lot of volatility in the markets. The big index, the S&P 500 is down. The NASDAQ, which is primarily tech stocks, is down even further. And a lot of people, when the market goes down, they feel like it's going to go down forever. And that's not true. And what they'll do is they'll sell when the market is down, which is the opposite of what you want to do. And the thing to remember is it's all about perspective. Like the last big crash was 2008. People emotionally felt like it lasted years. But if you look at the stock markets, it was down 1 year, 38%, but the next year went up like 24%. But if you held really good stocks, those stocks went up, we're talking over 100%. A lot of stocks did. And you fast forward, we went this long stretch without a bigger pullback. COVID of March, it was 2 years ago, March 2020.
Oof,
that
already.
was right. The stock market went down 30% at that time. And again, people were selling, but that was really short. That was 3 months. Within 3 months, the market was already at all-time highs. So the lesson here is when the market goes down, don't sell. If you can, use Tykr because you'll know what to buy, because that's where you make your biggest returns is when you buy, but absolutely do not sell. Don't get scared. Don't sell. You got to ride out the storm. So that's the best advice I have there with the market. With starting a business, I've done the service business thing, which is it can be fun and it can be a great way to get out of a job. Like if you don't want to work for somebody, you can work on your own. And I had an agency. The lesson learned there is it's not really a scalable business, which if that's not what you're looking for, that's fine. You know, you can have a bunch of clients and you can have a lifestyle business. But keep in mind, a service business probably isn't going to be sold someday. Like today, especially, people aren't buying service businesses because it's still, at the end of the day, it's a revenue stream you have to labor to. You have to work at it. Like if you get an agency, or like I've got a family relative that has an accounting business. Well, he's having a really hard time selling the business because it's a service business. So that's why my dream the last 10 years is to create a SaaS business. It's the software is the thing, and you could have 100,000 customers on it. And sure, you'll have some customer service, but the scalability can go through the roof of SaaS. And the challenge is creating a SaaS from a technical standpoint and a conceptual standpoint as well. I'll explain that real quick. You can't just wake up one day, as we know, and be like, all right, I've got an idea and we're going to go to market and people are going to use it. Doesn't happen that way. What you got to do is, what I found best practice is to find a few customers and get the platform or get some prototype built that's really minimum. Like it's not fancy, it's not great looking, but get it in their hands and then engage in conversations to find out, what do you like? What don't you like? What would you do different? And that input, you got to do that not over the course of a month. You got to do that over the course of years. And it can seem daunting, but we're about 18 months into Tykr being live, and we're still doing that to make the platform better.
Well, so and you mentioned you got there with the months and years, even with the Excel sheet, no?
Yes, you got it. So you could go back to 2015 or 16, and I've been at it now about 6 years plus. And in it, you gotta love it. You gotta love the customers you work with and serving them and helping them, and those conversations. And it can't just be surveys. You got to get them on Zoom. You got to share your screen. Sometimes have them share their screen. Like, I like this, but I don't like this, and I would do this. And you gotta, it's diligent note taking. But if you're good at all that, that's where you can take all that feedback and funnel it into a tool that people are actually going to use and share with their friends and family. And that's what you want with a SaaS business.
And you did that with Tykr as well? Like
yeah,
you had direct conversations with your first customers.
Absolutely. And I actually, when we went live, because this is a B2C, B2B is a little different, where you got to work with businesses, and I still advise a strategy as well, is get it to your customers for free. Don't think about the money. Like my goal was, when we went live, is try to get it in the hands of 100 people for free at least, because you want a bigger pool of people giving you feedback on what you like and don't like. So it's all about time. Like, do I want to give it to 100 people kind of piecemeal over the course of next 2 years? No, I'm like, I want to get it in the hands of 100 people today and then get their feedback thereafter, because the faster you can get feedback, the faster you can make changes to your tool, and of course find that product market fit and then monetize. It just it's a lot of customer service up front.
Sure. Yeah, that makes all sense. what's next? You mentioned that you're working now on some new features on the education side.
Sure.
What else you have exciting that's cooking?
Yeah, the education is big. We'll also be adding a portfolio tracker, and this is something people have been asking for, is they want to be able to track their stocks, crypto. We're going to be adding crypto to Tykr as well. ETFs. So if you like investing in like index funds or ETFs, which are essentially a big bundle of a bunch of stocks, you'll be able to track that in one location and see other people's portfolios. And if you follow somebody's portfolio like mine, you can see when I make changes, like if I bought this stock or sold this stock. So it's full transparency into the community. And there's a little bit of crowdsourcing as well. Like we have a tool built in called the 4M analysis. Long story short, it looks at all aspects of the business. You get the margin of safety, which is the math part of investing, but then you also have the meaning, moat, and management. And the crowdsourcing aspect will really help, especially new investors, walk through it a lot easier. We have a version of it on our site now, but it's just too hard to use. So if you get more of a community providing feedback along the way, it's like the bigger the community gets, the better everybody's going to become at investing. And we're super excited about that. So the next few months will be a lot of fun to see where this goes.
That's great. I'm actually like, if you get, I'm interested in trying it myself.
Sure. Yeah, the current version, it'll be fun to hear your feedback, because the current version is decent, but this new version is going to be pretty cool.
When are you launching the new one?
Hopefully in mid to late April, otherwise it'll be May. So I keep telling people it's like a month or two out.
Cool. All right, I'll give it a go. Okay, well that was it for me. It's been a pleasure, and yeah, I'll edit the interview, and still, you said you're gonna be fine with it, but I'm still like gonna send it to you to have a look before we publish it.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks a lot.
I got a question here about your business.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So are you doing podcasting full time? Do you have a business as well?
So let me just have a look at when is my next call, so I don't run over. Yeah, okay, I have a few minutes. So what actually, sure, yeah. So what I actually do, you can see on markupgrade.com. So that's the main site. So that's what I would do for like living. So I advise people and help people secure premium domain names for their businesses and naming in general. So companies that want to rebrand, companies that have a new product or service or sub-brand and they're looking for a name, that sort of thing. So in the process of doing that, kind of realize there's a lot of information that people just don't know when it comes to naming and domain names. So we launched smartbranding.com. And that's just like freely available resources that it started actually as a blog on Mark Upgrade, and then it just became bigger than just the blog. So we decided to just launch it as its own domain name and project. So there's a lot of information that we do there that's educational. We do the interviews like this one with yourself, where we have people sharing their experience about their brands and general advice to entrepreneurs. We also have a lot of research there, like we're looking, I know, like the top whatever brands in whatever sector for the year and what names they chose for their business, that sort of a thing. So we have that as well. So it's less, I guess, because you've been in software development, you mentioned, and I had an IT agency some ages ago as well. And something that happened a lot was like you'd get somebody talking about, I want this for my website and I want it to look like that and I want it to be that color, and it's like, yeah, but it's not for you, it's for your customers, it's them that are supposed to. So there's a lot of that as well with domain names, and I guess it's probably the same with anything really, but a lot of times like I would be talking to people and they're like, yeah, but I like that, and so that doesn't confuse me, and that's okay for me. It's like, yeah, probably you, but what about your clients? What about your team? What about everybody? So instead of that's where the data side came into it, where instead of trying to convince people like, that's what's good, we're like, okay, let's look at businesses that are doing well. What are they doing? And then it's a bit more factual, and I hope it helps people make better decisions.
That's great. The reason I ask is I have a podcast with two themes. One is investing, but another one that seems to be more popular is people telling their business background. Like, how do they build businesses, right? And we've got a lot of customers that, yes, they're investors, but they're also entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs, and they want to learn how people created a business. What steps did you go through? What challenges did you face? Would that be something you're interested in? Would you be interested in?
Sure, why not? Yeah, that'll be fun. Yeah.
I'll shoot you a Calendly link. You can find time. You're in France, so right now it is going on 2 o'clock. Is that right? Or
yeah,
3?
2:30. We're gonna 2:30 p.m. at the moment.
Got it. Because I usually do midday, which would be then 5:36, somewhere in there.
That works some days. Yeah, I'll check.
Okay.
Yeah, I can figure something out.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'll shoot you the link and it'll be good to hear your background.
Sure. All right. Nice talking to you, and have a nice afternoon.
Yes, indeed. Yes, good meeting you, Tatiana. See ya.
You too. Ciao.
Thank you for joining us in this episode of Smart Branding Podcast. Feel free to visit smartbranding.com for more information and reach out if you have any suggestions, questions, ideas, or just want to learn more about how a good domain name strategy can help you build a strong and successful brand. See you next time!